is there a proportion of people who are going to care regardless of what the incentive is? It's just in them that I have this problem in front of me. I'm going to understand this thing and I'm going to care about it. And like you gave me this problem, so just because of who I am, I'm going to care about it and I'm going to drive towards this thing.
For sure.
Personal standards are just just
and another set of people who are like, I mean, whatever you put in front of me, it's just another thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do the job I have to do so I can do the job I want to do.
So in our industry, our industry is fairly well paid compared to most things out there. That's a fairly recent last 20 years big shift and the size of the industry. You know, you've got 20 years of this is a fast growing, great industry to work in. Does that mean, people who used to be in this industry were, man, I really love computers. I want to work with these things.
I know a lot of people who are doing this as a second career.
And now you've broadened it to, there's only a pool so big in the world of people who super care about whatever their current job is. I put this thing in front of you and you're not going to be able to do a shitty job at it because it's not in you to do a shitty job on anything. Now we've opened it up to, there's a lot more people who are willing to not care.
There are a lot of people making very bold predictions about what AI is going to do to everything. I would guess that the people who are on that end of the spectrum are the ones who should be worried about it. The people who you tell me what to build and I'll build it exactly to your specs without any care of whether it's a good thing or not.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be affected sooner. And that slack is going to be taken up by AI.
That's interesting, and that's a departure. So the old solution used to be, and it was misguided, I think. Used to be, if you got A players, B players, and C players, get those C players up to B. Yeah. Improve the productivity of the masses. But the counter argument to that is you're never going to get your B players, C players up to B. Why don't you focus on your A players and get them up to A pluses? Focus on your strengths. That, I think, might even, like in this world that you're describing, this is replace your C players with artificial intelligence.
Don't have a C division.
And artificially attach that intelligence to your A players and make them what comes before A? Alpha.
Still A.
Still A.
Damn it. 1 players. Star players.
Yeah.
Asterisk.
I bring it back to a lack of leadership. And we talk a lot about the difference between management and leadership. I think most of the problems that we encounter on a day-to-day basis start with leadership problems or lack thereof. Or I'll see a leader who has a mission that they really care about, and to your point, they can't articulate it. Or maybe it's a dumb mission. Or maybe they found themselves in a management position and they're trying to act like a leader, but they have no vision.
Yeah.
You have to have that, and it has to be meaningful before you can attach people to it.
Yeah. A good manager manages to an outcome. But if there is no outcome to be found, because the leader believes that management is just a way to improve the productivity of the workers.
Because the vast majority of outcomes that I've heard from senior leadership across most organizations in the last 15 years has been, we're going to reach this level of revenue. We're going to be like this, $1 billion company. Or whatever that is.
And we're going to hire enough to make that happen.
And I don't know, at least from somebody who is doing things, that doesn't move anything for me. Like, oh, I understand why you care about that because you have all of these options and your pay is tied to, you get a big bonus if we hit that thing.
Yeah.
But you're min-maxing for that at the expense of my work-life balance or my work-life balance at all, like any kind of life balance on that side of it. And historically, like, there's been that show. Like, the 90s was another period where there was a big moment of, mid-90s, where all of a sudden, prior to that point, there was, you go work at this company and you're going to be there for life.
Mm-hmm.
Mid-90s was the point where all of those places that you were going to go work for life just had massive layoffs. And that kind of led to a late 90s
You work
trying to
hard, the
think.
company will take care of you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's,
Like then you had the uprise of like Reality Bites, where it's like,
Yeah.
fuck it, I'm gonna drop out and be a surfer for the rest of my life, and that's cool. And you know, the rise of the hipsters in the early 2000s, where it was like everything's ironic. Like
Yeah.
like the irony is the thing that I'm going. Like that's no different to me than here. Is there was a shock to the system that upset what people's expectations were.
Mm-hmm.
People respond to it by saying like, "Screw you, I'm going to focus on me."
That is very interesting. There's little difference between. So my dad was laid off. He worked for Magnavox. Philips bought Magnavox. Laid off from Philips after a 25-year career when he was 50 years old. I think maybe in his 50s. That was an eye-opening moment for me. I was a senior in high school.
not on your bingo card for.
Yeah, right. So, but that's, I mean, so I'm about to enter the workforce, and now I've got this fresh view of, so the employer isn't going to be loyal to the employee. So why would the employee be loyal to the employer? Yeah, that's interesting. That's no different than, and that at a macro level reshuffled the relationship, or what the employee expects from the employer, and therefore what the employer expects from the employee, just like COVID is doing, but having a different effect.
And I would speculate that this shock and its unintended consequences are worse because this system is far easier to game than when your dad was laid off.
Yeah.
It's far easier to coast and steal, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
And it's way harder to fire people now too.
There's another thing that I want to throw out there demographically. If you look at just the generations, right? It kind of had been a progression up until baby boomers, but kind of became the CEOs of everything. And then it froze. And it's kind of been frozen for the last 30 years, where baby boomers didn't really retire. They just kept being CEOs of things. And now it's kind of hitting another, like, so baby boomers were the ones who were in charge during those layoffs in the 90s. They're still kind of the ones that have been in charge through this round of things and are still holding on to the mindset that we were talking about of, no, because you've got to dedicate your life to the company.
Yeah.
And the conversations haven't changed all that much. Like, it's the same conversations you were having back then. Like, why aren't people like fully invested in this company? It's going to take care of you. When everybody's like, no, it's not. It hasn't for 30 years. Why would I bother?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like rebuild that trust that, and the AI stuff I think makes it worse. Like, oh, look what's coming. We're going to get rid of everybody. Like, you know, we're anticipating some layoffs. Well, let's get rid of a bunch of people, bump the stock price, send out a bunch of stock buybacks. So like people see these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they take the message, and it's the message that you're sending out. It doesn't matter what message you're saying. Like in the office, be real super excited about these things we're doing. Meanwhile, here's all of the outside world news that's going on.
Yeah.
We've got another Cold War that's starting up again.
A different after effect of it, though, is, you know, in the previous iteration of this cycle, you were only concerned about layoffs in your industry. Like if you saw your competitor laying off folks, you might, if GM's laying off people and you work for Ford, you're like, oh, maybe I'm worried about it. With technology being a shared service that every company has now, when I see Twitch laying off someone, that could make my ears, you know, even if I don't work for a video game company or streaming service. So with technology being everywhere, that's something new that we haven't seen before. And I don't know the result of that, but that is a marked difference before, even just geographically. If a company on the West Coast laid people off, me in the Midwest, that doesn't affect me anyway. But now that we're everywhere and distance doesn't matter as much for, you know, companies, what is that going to look like in the next 5 years as we go through a recession and more layoffs? Or not.
Thanks for tuning in to Raise the Bar. We have a conference coming up that you should know about. It's DevOps Midwest, and we're proud to host it. We have a great lineup of speakers this year. We're going to talk about the latest in DevOps innovations. We're talking modern development practices, security, DevSecOps, cloud development, AI's impact on DevOps. This is an opportunity to network and learn from your peers. We've got practitioners and leaders alike in this thing. It's April 11th. We've got 2 tracks we're running simultaneously. Space is limited at our new location, so make sure you register today. And don't miss it. We've got a panel discussion with IT thought leaders around the middle of the day. I hope to see you there.